I poured my life savings and my soul into my fiancée's tech startup. I was the silent partner, the one who worked behind the scenes to make her dream a reality. I even planned to propose on the day she landed her biggest investors. But when a single misplaced email revealed she was not only having an affair with her co-founder, but also committing fraud to steal my investment, I realized our entire relationship was a lie. They thought I was just the quiet, supportive boyfriend. They forgot I was also the man who built their entire financial model. How do you get revenge on someone about to become a millionaire off your back? You don't get angry. You prepare a better pitch deck. Listen to the full story to see how I turned the biggest moment of her life into her public execution. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The air in the boardroom on Sand Hill Road was worth more than my entire life savings. It was a rarefied atmosphere of recycled, climate-controlled confidence, smelling faintly of expensive leather and ambition. Across the ridiculously long mahogany table, my fiancée, Isabel, was giving the performance of her life. She was a vision in a tailored blazer, her voice steady, her smile dazzling, as she walked the venture capitalists from Sequoia Capital through the pitch deck for her company, Aura. Our company. She was radiant. She was a star. And in 10 minutes I was going to make her a black hole. My heart should have been pounding, but it was beating with a slow, cold rhythm, like a metronome in an empty room. Isabel, or Izzy, as the world knew her, thought I was here as her adoring, supportive partner, the quiet tech guy who helped her build her dream. She had no idea I was here as her executioner. She'd occasionally glance over at me, offering a brilliant, conspiratorial smile. The same smile she'd given me 2 nights ago, when I found the email that proved she was planning to destroy me. I just smiled back, a perfect imitation of the man she thought I was. The fool. The mark. 2 years ago my life was simple. I was a senior data analyst for a mid-sized insurance firm in Chicago. I liked my job. I was good at it. I could make spreadsheets sing and find the narrative in a mountain of raw numbers. And then I met Izzy at a networking event. She wasn't just a person, she was a force of nature. She had this idea for an AI-driven wellness app, Aura, that would create personalized mental health roadmaps for users. She had the charisma, the vision, the face for the brand. What she didn't have was the technical co-founder or the seed money. I became both. I was mesmerized. I fell for her, hard. She made me feel like I was part of something huge, something that mattered more than crunching actuarial tables. So I did what any man desperately in love and blinded by a beautiful, brilliant woman would do. I quit my stable, well-paying job. I cashed out my 401k. I liquidated my entire stock portfolio. I poured every cent I had, just over $200,000, into getting Aura off the ground. Our dynamic was set from the start. She was the sun, and I was the planet she kept in a quiet, stable orbit. The codependency was baked in. Nate, you're the only one I trust to build the back end, she'd say, touching my arm. You're the brains. I'm just the face. But my name was never on the incorporation papers as a co-founder. I was listed as a consultant. When I questioned it, the gaslighting began. Babe, it's just for optics, she'd say, her voice as smooth as silk. A solo female founder is a much more powerful narrative for the VC world. It's better for us. Don't you trust me? Of course I did. My learned helplessness was a comfortable blanket. Arguing with Izzy was like arguing with a tidal wave. It was easier to just let her pull me in the direction she wanted to go. I worked 18-hour days from our cramped apartment, building the algorithm, managing the servers, while she was out networking, building her brand, becoming a minor celebrity in the Chicago tech scene. I told myself we were a team, that her success was my success. The cognitive dissonance was a low hum in the back of my mind, the chasm between her public praise for my amazing team and the private reality that I was the team, and I was working for free. The red flags were there, but I chose to see them as confetti. The late-night strategy sessions she had with Mark, the slick, handsome marketing guy she brought on, the way her phone would be face down on the table whenever I walked into the room, the extravagant dinners with potential investors that I was never invited to, all paid for with the money from our joint business account, the account I had funded. You're not a front-of-houses person, Nate, she'd say when I asked why I couldn't come. You're too genuine. These guys are sharks. Let me handle them. I'm protecting you. She wasn't protecting me. She was hiding me. She was hiding me. The plan was for me to propose on this trip to Palo Alto. After she secured the $5 million series of funding, after the corks were popped and the term sheets were signed, I was going to take her to a quiet spot in the Santa Cruz Mountains, get down on one knee, and present her with the ring that was currently burning a hole in my pocket. I saw it as the culmination of our shared dream. The dream shattered 48 hours ago. I was looking for a flight confirmation in our shared email account. It was 2 a.m. She was asleep in our bed, looking like an angel. I typed Sequoia into the search bar, and an email from a month ago popped up. The subject line was, "The Nate Problem." It was an email from Izzy to Mark. My blood turned to ice as I read it. "Mark, we need to finalize the strategy for handling the Nate Problem post-funding. My gut says a clean break is best. Once the wire transfer from Sequoia clears, I'll dissolve our joint account and transfer the full amount to the new corporate account you set up. I'll tell him I need some space, that the pressure of the company has changed me. I'll offer him a small severance, maybe 50K, for his early work. He's so conflict averse, he'll probably just take it and disappear. He'll be hurt, but he's not the type to make a scene. We can't have him hanging around with his consultant's title. The investors need to see us as a united front, you and me. Let me know your thoughts." My breath caught in my chest. It wasn't just a breakup plan, it was a conspiracy to commit fraud. She was planning to steal the entire value of the company I had built and paid for. The company whose intellectual property was almost entirely my creation. I kept digging. I used a data recovery program on her laptop's trash bin. And I found it. A different version of the pitch deck. A version where Mark was listed as the CTO. It included a detailed 5-year financial projection that completely erased my seed funding, listing it instead as a pre-seed investment from an anonymous angel investor. Me. I was the anonymous angel she was planning to screw over. I looked at her, sleeping peacefully in our bed. The woman I was going to ask to be my wife, and I felt nothing. The love, the adoration, it had all been cauterized in an instant. All that was left was a cold, quiet, surgical rage. The trauma bond that had kept me tethered to her, that had made me accept her excuses and her manipulations, snapped. She had made one critical, narcissistic mistake. She thought I was just the quiet, emotional support. She forgot that I was a data analyst. She forgot that I was the man who could find the narrative in a mountain of raw numbers. And I was about to tell a story she would never forget. So here I am, sitting in this boardroom, a graveyard of my hopes. Izzy is wrapping up her presentation, her voice ringing with passion. And so, with Aura, she concludes, we're not just building an app. We're building a movement. A movement towards a more authentic, more mindful future. The VCs are nodding, their faces shining with greed. They're completely captivated. One of them, a silver-haired shark named Caldwell, looks at her and says, "Impressive, Ms. Vance. Very impressive. We're ready to sign. This is it. My moment." Izzy looks over at me, her eyes screaming, "We did it." I just smile back, stand up and clear my throat. "Excuse me," I say, my voice calm and clear in the sudden silence. "Before you do that, I have a brief addendum. As the company's primary seed investor and the architect of its core technology, I've prepared a short presentation on due diligence. I think you'll find it illuminating. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch." The shift in the room's atmosphere was instantaneous. It went from a celebratory popping of champagne corks to the dead, heavy silence of a courtroom. Izzy's triumphant smile faltered, replaced by a flicker of confusion, then annoyance. The VCs stared at me, their pens hovering over the term sheet. Caldwell, the senior partner, leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "And you are?" he asked, his tone dripping with skepticism. "I'm Nathan Cole," I said, walking calmly to the head of the table. "I'm the anonymous angel investor who provided the $200,000 in seed capital. I'm also the developer who wrote every line of the proprietary algorithm that Aura is built on. And I have some concerns about the data you've just been presented with." Izzy was on her feet now, her face pale. "Nate, what are you doing?" "This isn't the time." She tried to laugh it off, turning to the investors. "My apologies. Nate's the tech genius, but he gets a little passionate. We can discuss this later." I think we should discuss it now, I said, pulling a USB drive from my pocket. It was the same one on which I had the engagement ring design files saved. The irony was not lost on me. It'll only take 5 minutes. Caldwell exchanged a look with his partners, then gave a curt nod. Go on. I plugged the drive into the presentation laptop. The logo for Aura on the massive screen behind me was replaced by the first slide of my presentation. It was simple, clean, and devastating. The title read, Aura, a case study in financial discrepancy and IP risk. As you can see from the deck you were just shown, I began, my voice steady. Aura projects 5 million active users by year 3. An impressive number. However, that projection is based on a fraudulent user acquisition model. I clicked to the next slide. It showed 2 graphs side by side. One was Izzy's beautiful, soaring projection. The other was a jagged, ugly line graph showing the actual user data pulled directly from our server logs. The real data shows a user churn rate of nearly 60% in the first 90 days. The numbers in your deck have been inflated by a factor of 10. A low murmur went through the room. I could see Mark, Izzy's co-conspirator, turning a shade of green. Next, the issue of seed funding. I clicked again. A screenshot of Izzy's email to Mark appeared on the screen, the one about the Nate problem. I had highlighted the key phrases: dissolve our joint account, offer him a small severance. He's not the type to make a scene. The anonymous angel investor you've heard about is me, I explained. And as you can see from this internal communication, the plan was never to repay that investment. The plan was to misappropriate the funds and remove me from the company as soon as your $5 million wire transfer cleared. This isn't just unethical, it's wire fraud. Izzy finally found her voice. It was a strangled whisper. This is insane. He's twisting things. This is a personal matter, a relationship issue, is it? I clicked to the final, most damning slide. It was a side-by-side comparison of 2 legal documents. One was the consulting agreement I had signed. The other was a document I'd found buried on Mark's cloud drive. A proposed founders' agreement between Isabel Vance and Mark Chernin, granting them each 50% of the company's equity. It was dated 6 months ago. The core intellectual property of this company, the algorithm, was developed by me under the verbal understanding that I was the co-founder, I said, my voice ringing with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. This was later formalized under a consulting agreement, which I was assured was a temporary measure for optics. However, this draft of a founders' agreement, which I was not privy to, indicates a clear intent to transfer ownership of my intellectual property to a new corporate entity without my consent or compensation. In the state of California, that's a significant legal risk for any potential investor. I turned from the screen and looked directly at Caldwell. I wasn't emotional, I wasn't yelling. I was just a data analyst presenting his findings. So, to summarize, I said, you are being asked to invest $5 million in a company with fraudulent user data, an active conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and a cloud of litigation risk over its core IP. As the man who built that IP, I cannot in good conscience allow you to proceed without seeing the full dataset. I unplugged my USB drive. The screen went black. The silence in the room was absolute. Caldwell slowly, deliberately, picked up the unsigned term sheet. He looked at Izzy, whose face was a ruin of makeup and tears. He looked at Mark, who was staring at the floor as if hoping it would swallow him. Then he looked at me. He didn't say a word. He just tore the term sheet in half, letting the pieces flutter onto the table. This meeting is over, he said, and with that, he and his partner stood up and walked out of the room. The moment the door clicked shut, Izzy's narcissistic rage erupted. You, she shrieked, her voice raw. You ruined everything, our entire future. For what? Because your ego was bruised. My ego? I let out a short, bitter laugh. Izzy, I gave you everything. My money, my time, my work, my trust. I was going to ask you to marry me on this trip. I loved you. And you were planning to throw me away like a piece of garbage for a rounding error in your new bank account. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the velvet ring box. I didn't open it. I just tossed it onto the table, where it landed next to the ripped-up pieces of our future. You were right about one thing, I said, turning to walk away. I'm not the type to make a scene. I'm the type to make a presentation. The fallout was total. Izzy and Mark were blacklisted in the VC community. Word travels fast on Sand Hill Road. and no one wanted to touch a company tainted with that level of fraud and drama. Aura imploded within a month. The handful of employees they had hired quit. The servers I had been maintaining went offline. The dream was dead. I hired a lawyer. Faced with the mountain of evidence I had, Izzy and Mark settled quickly. I didn't get all of my initial investment back. Much of it had been burned on their lavish networking lifestyle. But I got enough to start over. More importantly, I retained full, undisputed ownership of the algorithm I had created. I moved back to Chicago. I didn't go back to the insurance industry. Instead, I took my algorithm and I started my own data consultancy firm, helping small, honest businesses make sense of their data. It's not glamorous. I'm not on the cover of any tech magazines, but it's real, and it's mine. Last week I was in a coffee shop downtown and I saw her, Izzy. She was working as a barista. Her hair was different. The confident fire in her eyes was gone, replaced by a dull, haunted look. She was taking an order, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She saw me. Our eyes met for a second. I saw a flash of hatred, of shame, of regret. I just gave a small neutral nod, paid for my coffee, and walked out. There was nothing left to say. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anger. I just felt quiet. I had spent 2 years of my life trying to build a future for someone else. But in that boardroom, by tearing her world down, I had inadvertently started building a foundation for my own. One built not on lies or ambition, but on the cold, hard, and ultimately liberating truth.